And we are live. Hi, everyone. I'm going to take a hot minute and double check that the tech is working. I am really, really excited to do this. Topic. Edit, post. Oh, wait, wrong thing. Sorry about that, everybody. I am just trying to make sure to change the tech and make sure that the post is public. Oh, wait, wrong thing. Sorry about that, everybody. Join us live. Public. Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all are doing amazing. I have been counting down the days until this live with this special woman on this screen. I am just so excited that she is here to share with you. In case you are new to my channel, I'm Margot Master, your Heartfelt CFO. I own and operate Heartfelt CFO. We help mental health business owners around business, accounting, tax, and all of the in between. And I get the pleasure to introduce to you Sophie. Sophie, how are you?
I'm good.
When I first met Sophie, at the beginning, we had some text exchange, and it just wasn't the right time for her to do some work together. But when she did have the time and when she was ready to reach out, she just jumped in and she was ready. Sophie, feel free to tell everybody all the good things about you, what you do, and anything in between that's on your mind.
Well, I think you first reached out to me through a message through Facebook, and I was like, no, I don't need accounting. I have an accountant. Go away.
Here we go. Yeah.
I was pretty sassy. But something made me be like, but I'll keep that in my back pocket just in case. I don't know why. But I, a year and 5 months ago, lost my husband. And it threw me for like on the floor and kicked me around and was super intense. And through finding myself again, I met with one of my friends that's a financial advisor. And my joke was, can you help me manage the money I don't have and plan for the money I want to have? And she looked at me and I said, I have a private practice and we're childhood friends. She knows me well. And she's like, Sophie, that's a business. And I'm like, I don't have a business. Like, it's just people pay me to meet with me and it's just a little private practice. And she's like, no, like you have a business. You need to run your business like a business. And I was like, okay, whatever. You don't get me. And just passed her off. And so then after my husband, after I kind of started getting my feet underneath me a little bit, I have a couple interns and I have another woman that called me up and said, will you please hire me and supervise me as I work towards my licensure? And I was like, oh, sure. And then I was like, I have a lot of friends that have group practices and mental health practices, and I see all the stress and the intensity they have. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this, but I really love building up other therapists. So it came from that love. So I turned back around and I found that old Facebook message and I said, okay, I think I'm ready. And I think what spoke most to me, Margot, is the idea of heartfelt CFO, like you teaching me to be a CFO of my business and run my business like a business. And I think in the beginning, I was just thinking about money and numbers because I was coming from a place of scarcity. And if I hire this person, how do I hire them? How do I do payroll? How do I do all these things? And I just wanted a formula to put on a spreadsheet to make things just happen. And Margot was really mean and didn't do any of that. She actually started with, we're not going to look at the numbers. I actually want you to look at all this perception shifting. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I've done it before. I've done all the, visioning and what are your goals for your business and business plan. And I don't consider myself super coachable in that way, because I'm like, I help other people do this. Like, I get that. Like, let's get to the numbers. And I really appreciate that you didn't let me jump to the numbers. And when we did jump to the numbers, I basically paid Margot for an hour to watch me cry looking at a spreadsheet. Is what it felt like. But I really appreciate how you came alongside of me and helped hold my hand in shifting my perceptions, and really just the reflection back. Like, there's something, even though I know that I do coaching with other people, I know the tricks, I know the things you're asking me, to have another person across from you saying, okay, no, but what about you answering those questions? And I know you know the question, but let's dive deeper into what the question means and what's in your heart and how do you answer it. And so that amount of accountability helped me become aware of, oh my gosh, like how my family sees money, how I grew up seeing money, how it's generational, and just so many sneaky things that if we would have just done Sophie's agenda and done the spreadsheets and learned how to run payroll, that I would have crashed. I would have then ended up like some of my friends who are mental health professionals that have learned all these lessons the hard way, and had to go backwards. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I got from that, is just shifting my views of money and of what I do, and really getting clear in my private practice isn't just a private practice. It's growing into a group practice. Who do I want to invest in? Not just client-wise, but therapist-wise. Who are the therapists I want to attract? Not just being a victim of what I attract, but actually being a co-creator in what do I want, instead of just passively waiting to see what comes my way.
So I have a question for you. You said a lot of important things. Just let's say somebody else out there who wants to start a practice, who wants to grow the practice, who was at that turning point like you were, where it was like, I could just bring them on because people assume it's making them more money. But you made a conscious decision not to do that. You made a conscious decision of, I need to do something first. And gratefully, Margot was the vehicle. What would you say to somebody else who's in that, where they just think, let me just take it on without thinking it through first? How now you have all these shifts to take on what you want to believe is the practice. And now that you remember and made more aware of what makes you more unique. Because one of the biggest things that I see in the mental health business practices is that people see it as, oh my God, they're leaving and they're going to somebody bigger. People are not really paying attention to what makes them unique and why clients should come to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's unique where I am because everybody has a wait list. So it's not a stress of scarcity and getting clients. But at the same time, that stress is still there. So it's very insidious and doesn't make sense. Like, there were times when you would be like, Sophie, you just told me you have a wait list. Like, why are you now freaking out over here? And I'm like, oh, it's my thinking process, right? And just because I have therapists that want to work for me or under me or whatever that are coming my way, really being clear on, who am I? What have I built my practice into to make sure it's a good fit for bringing that person in? Because I've spent a long time thinking about this person and preparing for this person if I'm going to hire her, and getting really clear on, talking to her about what are your passions? What kinds of clients do you like? What do you prefer to work with? And spending time with myself thinking, okay, what are the kind of clients that my practice is attracting? Because I'm the head of the practice. So it starts at the head and filters down. And so we're meeting this week. I'm finally ready. I did all my Margot homework. And we're meeting this week to get really clear on, is this something that you really want? Here's what this practice is about. Here's what people expect when they come into my practice, to this practice. Mm-hmm. The kind of, here's what they expect as far as, we live in a small community, so there's a lot of word of mouth. There's, those kinds of things. And so I just have a lot more clarity in being able to speak with her on just
values and culture, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's exactly like where are we at? Words are intense. I just got back from vacation, so I'm like, whoa. But yeah, and that clarity, because if we don't have, and it's not that is she good enough or not good enough? It's literally, are you stepping into the same flow that's already happening in this practice? And if not, then let's find another flow for you in a different way. But it might not be with me.
Love that, because if it comes into the same flow, it brings into our whole culture of what clients are coming in for. And when somebody comes in from a different way, it really just clashes, and people think that something's wrong with income and profit. They go into this tax cycle and think it's like the tax man taking the money. But when we really narrow down who we want to serve, who we can help, and that the culture aligns, it became easier and easier for clients to come to you. And clients, if I recall, ones who you didn't even think were aligned for you, you actually rethought that too. You weren't a victim of this area anymore, which I feel like in a lot of ways, it was taking an impact.
Yeah. Well, and making me get clear on my own values, because I'm a synergetic play therapist and I do EMDR. And synergetic play therapy, Lisa Dion came up with it, and she spends a lot of time in our trainings talking about the law of attraction. And, a lot of times your worst fear is what you're going to attract, right? Because then that's just the law of how life works. And so for a long time, I spent like, okay, who's walking in my door next? Reflecting what, where do I have some rough edges? And just being very aware and self-reflection of the clients that are coming to me, and realizing that I don't have to stay in that space of being passive of who comes in, but being able to say, no, this is what I'm passionate about and this is what I love. So a client where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know, what is that going to mean for me? I could sit back and be like, okay, am I scared? Is it a reaction I'm having? Or is this a challenge? And I love challenges. And so it helped me find some clarity within that too, of like, who do I want to say yes to? Who do I need to refer out? In that kind of sense too, and be more of a co-creator instead of a passive receiver, I guess, of what's coming in, has been really great. And the lady that did call me to ask if I would hire her in my practice, I had a meeting, Margot and I spent a long time talking about like money and how much we charge. And she's like, you should charge more, Sophie. And I was like, well, I know, but. And so this lady, the first meeting we had,
you off on those buts, and I was like, no buts.
Exactly. And this lady, so she sits down and we're talking about her experience. She's super experienced, but she not in the United States. So she's from the UK, and she was a psychiatrist actually. So her experience is huge. And instead of being like, oh, I'm idolizing you, you have all this experience, who am I to supervise you, right? To be like, okay, wait, but am I the right fit for you to come in and learn, maybe not to be so much from the doctor's stance, but from the therapeutic stance of connect with people and feeling her out. But then she came back to me and asked how much I charge in my practice. And we talked about money, and I love her so much. She's from England, and she was like, she doesn't have the scarcity mindset whatsoever. Like that's not her challenge. So when we were talking, she was like, the way I see it, we should charge $200 a session. For me, I get 100, you get 100, and anything less than that is not worth the time. And I was like, wow, Margot just told that to me. Like, thank you for reflecting back.
So let's stay there for a second. You were in various positions, right? We did a VIP day together. And just to backpedal a little bit, her and I, we spent a day together on a business plan, and we also worked on budgeting. So what we did was we split up the day. I gave her pre-work to do, and she did all of the pre-work. Not only did she do all of the pre-work, she took notes on every single one. and actually had questions ready for me. So it amplified what we were doing in the day versus me trying to tell her these are in this resource or in this video and this foundation and all these things. She actually sat with each one. So you were in the position, like, obviously a VIP day, let's just put it out there, is not cheap, and you said yes, and you took upon, we worked out the payments, and then you were in a position to now charge more. How would you say to somebody else who wants to do all these things, but they're still looking at the money perspective, because now you have all these shifts, right? And now somebody else reflected back to what we were working on together. What would you say was your shifts to help, and now possibly somebody else who's listening to this, that we can help others?
Well, I think using the language of making an investment versus spending money was huge. And that's what motivated me to do all the homework you gave me, was because it had to remain an investment, or else it was a really bad money decision. And so I wanted to get the most out of what I was paying for. I am back to working full time, and the money coming in, like, I was stressed about, I think at one point we had one last payment due, and I was like, it's going to go on the credit card anyway. Let's be realistic here. Like, I don't have the money for this, but it's going on the credit card. I'm investing in this. And I had to get over, like, I don't have credit card debt. That was one of I grew up in a ranching family. So any debt means you're going to lose everything. So, like, can't pay off a credit card, even if it's $100, is like the end of the world. And so I had to just kind of sit with that and say, okay, this is an investment, and I'm going to pay more in interest on this investment, but I'm going to set my budget in a way that I can pay it off as quickly as possible. So now when I make my payments towards that credit card, I'm paying it off faster because I've increased my rates and more money is coming in. So it's not like this looming debt hanging over my head that I'm freaking out about. I just was like, it's an investment. Sometimes investments come with more interest to pay, but my return is above the amount that I'm paying on the other end.
So listen to how many skills now she just stacked with this answer. We put into a strategy to pay it back. She felt comfortable around the intention for what she was doing, while she amplified the results of what the day was bringing out for her, which was her life purpose. Let's just put me aside for this for a moment. It gave her purpose, and now all these people that she gets to help in this practice. For me, also, the turning point of this day, I loved seeing her come back after going through such grief to now carry the partnership that she was having and not blame herself. She now shifted this into a different framework on we talked about how to have the intentional time with the kids, intentional time for her, and she's doing it. That's like, for me, like, just seeing women bounce back, and the few men in between too, because I have a lot of men clients too, bounce back after such the hardship, and now she's helping others too. It was just every time she came out, and like, I was just like, what happened next?
Well, and I'm a strong believer in the woo-woo, and money is energy. And I think when I first met with you, Margot, I was like, you were asking me all these questions, like, how much money do you get in? How do you pay yourself? And I'm like, I don't know. Money is magic right now. I'm not so magical, but I just have to share. So I have done some contract work with our local probation office, and I had a kid that I was working with, and I had 2 invoices that went unpaid since 2023. And I have been on this lady at this office being like, I have 2 invoices at $775. And I'm like, I really need the money. I really need the money. And I was like, you know what? When I stop being in scarcity, when I flip this, I'm probably going to get a check. And I got the check in the mail today. And I just like, even that is amazing. Like, nobody is balking at the rates that I raised. I have one family I just talked to this morning that money is a concern. And I was like, well, then you can work with one of my interns. And I said, this is how often we're meeting. And,
Well,
I need to.
I want to just stop you there for a second. Working, like, also the way she just now created a stepping stone for someone to come into the practice instead of shifting them out for the rate, not
Mhm.
making somebody feel bad or wrong because they didn't pay. She had a way for somebody to step in and work their way towards her.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
I want you to just hold that and really see that you now gave this person a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And a majority of my clients, I mean, the online record management system I use there's a spot where I can look each client, the total amount of money they've spent on me, which is kind of cool. But, it can feel like so much like, oh my gosh, I'm spending $200 a session or $250 a session, and this is so much. But at the end of the day, when we add it all up, they're investing like $5,000 in their kid, and then their kid's brain is rewired and they're good. And they're resilient and they can go through life. And imagine once that kid becomes a teenager, if they hadn't done that investment, the costs just go up and up, and it takes longer and longer. And so just me knowing that and owning that and seeing that for myself has shifted my perception when I'm talking to parents of, this is you investing in your kid now, and it's going to save you more money down the road. And it's going to actually you're going to thrive as a family instead of just, getting by and surviving. And so it's not just a monetary gain of saving money, but it's like you're thriving socially, emotionally, in so many other ways as well. And so just having that energy embodied in myself makes it so easy to talk to families and say, this is the rate and it's worth it. And like, really nobody has balked at my rates unless they're literally in a really challenging financial position, which is why I said, well, I also have interns that are excellent and you get access to me through them. And so that was a great way for them to sign on, and they're super excited to meet with my intern. So
that inner knowing
mm-hmm.
around yourself, your service, and the fees, like, it's classy, it's sexy, it's just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what else is possible here?
Yeah.
What would you say are like now off the cuff? What are big shifts that you would say really help you now every day evolve, where it's just getting better at helping you in more ways and better and better?
I think right now I am setting in a system. So I took your spreadsheet you gave me and made it my own. Mm-hmm. And so I'm setting up a system of sitting down and tracking the money. And it's turned into, money isn't magic, money is intentional. And I'm less stressed about money because it's more predictable, as opposed to this abstract thing that I was just hoping and believing would equal out as it needs to. And I have plans to talk. I have 2 teenage boys, so planning to talk to them about money, because I have one going to college next year. And so talking about budgeting and money and looking at that, and just noticing in my own kids, our family's view of scarcity, and starting to be able to pass that on to them and shift that a little bit too. Like, you don't have to live in scarcity, but I have one that's not worried about scarcity. He just says, I need more money to pay for my girlfriend. And then a friend texts me and says, hey, can I hire your son for some work? And I'm like, how does that happen? It's so annoying. But my other one, thinking about living in scarcity, and be like, buddy, we are fine. Like, he's writing for scholarships. And I'm like, okay, here's our financial situation. I know it sounds not ideal, and I know we're highlighting these challenges, but also know that there's these other areas that we are so supported. And so being able to have really good, well-rounded conversations with him and to build that confidence up in him that we're going for scholarships to help pay for college because of challenges we've gone through, not because we don't have enough. And it's a different shift even in that mindset, because I was watching him crash and be overwhelmed with scholarships. And now he's like, no, because I deserve this. And no, because I am ready for this. And just he's stepping into a different mindset. And it's easier now for him to write scholarships in terms of not, I need this because I don't have enough, but you should give me this money because I'm an excellent investment. And that's super cool to watch that reverberate, not just in my own business and practice, but even just
now the kids and the family are picking up the skills that now you have, and it's a ripple effect all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm like the chills. I just want to hug these kids. The mom in me comes out. So let's shift for a second around, like you said, we didn't jump into the numbers, but we did get into the numbers later. Would you mind talking about that part?
Sure. What do you want me to say about it?
Well, how did you feel then going into the budget? How did you feel around, having one? The word budget lots of times is a trigger word for people. So how did you think about the process? How do you see yourself now in it? And somebody else who wants a budget but doesn't necessarily, is not necessarily, like, they're just afraid to go in. How do you feel now in it, and somebody looking at this who wants to but is still on the outskirts?
I think the biggest shift I noticed with the budget, I hate the word budget. Because I think of scarcity. I'm going to not be able to spend things. I'm going to have to deny myself a bunch of stuff. And I think what helped with me is the way we went about the budget was, what are you spending now in all these categories? It wasn't, what can you afford? Or it wasn't from this other place. It was like, right now, what are you spending in all these categories? And break it all into categories. And it's actually allowed me to shift and go, oh, actually, I'm spending a lot of money on coffee, going to coffee shops. And I really want to do this other training over here because it just feels really inspiring to me. And so it's not, I can't afford the coffee, I have to stop getting coffee so much. It's actually getting coffee isn't as high on my values as this training. And so I'm shifting the money based on what I'm valuing. I'm not denying myself because I can't afford it. And I think that was the hugest. I was like, oh, Margot is brilliant. Because I think at first I was like, I don't want to do this. I even told you, this Excel thing, I just don't want to. And, I don't like it and blah, blah, blah. But once it's just clarity on where is the money going, and then what are my values? And then it's just seamless. Like, I don't want coffee anymore. My landlord provides coffee for us. I don't need to stop at a coffee shop. Like, honestly. Right. And so it's like, oh, I could sit in my office. And so my first investment is my chair I'm sitting on right now. The leg has fallen off. So it's like just teetering, sitting there. And I'm like, okay, every time I don't stop at the coffee shop, that's money that's going to go towards my next new office chair. And then I'm going to have, then I love being in my office. I don't have to go to a coffee shop. And just looking at things going up and up, what's based on my values instead of can't afford it.
Also, so staying on that, we also talked about how we frame things when we talk about it, like the scarcity, I can't afford. Somebody who's watching this, or somebody who's sitting in that, what's your top piece of advice from them? Because they're going to hear it different from you and then different from me. And it's kind of like when you heard it from that other person, you're like, Margot said that too.
It's just a constant, you are just constantly reframing things. Like I said, I'm a single mom now. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, we had this high and all these breakthroughs. And then I was like, and I'm a single mom. And you're like, don't go down. Bring it back up. And just catching it right away and being like, wait, I'm not just a single mom. Whoa, am I? I get to be more involved in my kid's life.
Right.
And that feels amazing. So I don't have to look at even the scarcity of time or I'm the only one. I can also be really thankful that I have a community that's helping me with my kids, and my kids are older, and those kinds of things. So it's just shifting mindset from scarcity in every way. Instead of just around money, it's also around time. And I'm noticing,
Talk
like, I
about
had
that with the schedule. Sorry to cut you off. Talk
oh
about
yeah,
that, how we shifted your schedule,
yes. So,
because you had a very clear black and white way of how
mhm,
you wanted it and thought it should be.
mhm. And that was the huge thing around time, is what do I value and where do I want to fill my time in? Because at one point you're like, oh, Sophie, you're charging this much and now you can make this much and you can get this many more clients. And I was like, no, I don't want more clients. That's what started the single mom thing, because I don't want to invest my time. I want to invest more time in my children versus have more money in the bank. And that was an interesting, like, that had never been verbalized before. And so now tightening my schedule up and being really clear, because the more that comes in, so it's not from scarcity anymore, it's from abundance, but now a lot of abundance is coming in. So I'm having to block out my schedule and say, these are the time slots I have for clients, and these are the time slots I have for paperwork. And if I want to volunteer time for like a best practices meeting in the court system or community meetings that I go to, being really clear, I don't have to go do all these things because I should or because I always have, but being able to say that's actually not aligning with my values right now. Or, hey, I've got some interns and they need a well-rounded experience, so how about they go to that meeting? Right. And so
More
trusting, once you have a good team that you trust, because you have been clear in your values of what kind of people fit in line with my business, I can now delegate to them because they're like not extensions of me. That sounds bad, but they're in the same flow as my business, right? So it's not a big deal for me to say, hey, go try out this early childhood meeting, and, in that kind of sense. So there's being clear about my time budgeting has been the same kind of process as being clear about money budgeting, I guess. Where am I spending it now? What do I want to spend it on? And it's not saying, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore, I can't. It's like, how else can that happen? And I want to transfer the time over to this other area that's high in my values as well.
So before we close, two things. We talked about ideal client, on who you want to serve. Like when we first began, I think it was more so like on other therapists. And now we really talked about a way of who you actually want to work with. If you can share more about that. And then after that, just to close, if there's something that you just feel going through the experience you want to share, or more things of tips that you want other people to now have to make it easier for their journey or help them get started. Because sometimes I tell you, like on my road where I see in the mental health world, they could be in 7 and 8 figures, but they're not making the same money where somebody could do in 6 figures. Like we have this belief that just because somebody is making 7 figures or 8 figures or multiple 7, 9 figures, that it's better and they have all of the things. But if you're not intentional around the money, those characteristics just follow you and amplify across it.
Yeah. I think I found my ideal client more by thinking about the ones I don't want. And because it's easier, right, to look at the negative than the positive, sometimes the beginning. So really sitting down and going, okay, looking at my caseload and thinking of past clients, what are the ones that I didn't want to come in and see? And then what are the clients I'm excited to come in and see? And to use that gauge, who are the ones I'm like, oh, I have to see them today, versus, oh my gosh, like I have one family that's coming back to me. They've had a lot of intensity happen in their life, and their little girl didn't see me for a while, and the dad just contacted me again. And I was like, I will do anything for I will fit your kid into my schedule. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Why am I so excited for that person? But it's because they're very committed, and committed not just monetarily, but committed to the process. Um, and there's just piece, that commitment piece and willingness to work is, I think, probably the biggest, the client that I want to attract. And now that I've raised my rates, it's been really interesting, the commitment levels of people stepping in and saying, no, I'm going to invest in this. And I have a client that is in the service industry, and I was like, this is the rates, and here's how often that we need to meet, or else it's not going to be worth your time. And they were like, it's worth the investment because I need to invest in myself. And I was like, perfect client for me. Right. And so that's been really great.
The teamwork together when the client is also doing their work. Mm-hmm. This is what made this day so powerful with Sophie, is because not only did she do the work, she was embodying it also in terms of like what was really going on. She didn't just show up. And what we did was we broke up time to see how it worked in her life so that she could come back and give us the good, the bad, in between, and the evil of all the in between. So possibly we can curate it. Mm-hmm. Where I want to bring this together is the value of a business plan is that when business breaks down, it's not everything. Chances are it's an area, and it just needs to be curated over time, because business isn't linear. Over time, it grows and different things shift and change, right? It's kind of like January 1st, everybody was very big on goals and all of these things, but chances are a lot of those people who are not doing the work every day, it kind of dropped off. The beauty about this business plan is that it grows with you. So now if something happens in her business, she can go back to the notes that she took that were very, very detailed, that she knows where she was then, that now if things are shifting, changing, she can work that area. It's not that the whole business is collapsing and now the tax man is an evil department. It's the area of business that just needs to be curated and updated to work with the growth of the business more and more. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm. And I think you helped me tease out that I just remember meeting with you, and you just like dressed my business down in 2 sentences. And I was like, oh, ouch. Of like, this is what I see mental health professionals doing. And then this is where the money leaks. And I was like, wow, awesome. But I think I'm also a supervisor, and I'm like a consultant and supervisor. So getting clear that it's not just I have one umbrella of my business, but I have clients coming in for my business, and there's an area of goals and my ideal client there. But I also supervise and consult, and am looking at hiring therapists. And so it's almost like 2 different aspects of my business. And I think doing my business plan was overwhelming because I was trying to do all of it in this one thing versus splitting it out and getting intentional of how does this one fit with this one. And it's 2 separate ones. And then that helped me kind of deepen in a little bit more too.
I forgot about that. Right. Mm-hmm. She was doing so much under one umbrella, and it was really 2. And I said to her, we could basically just use the same plan for each one. Yeah. And to work that way. Yes. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you reminded that. Wow. Yeah. I'm actually crying because there's just so much here that I could not be more grateful that I was able to do this with you, and that you actually were bold and courageous to share this today around others, helping others, sharing the journey. And we want to, sharing is caring. And, the ripple effect for the family, for the kids, for the future generations. I was actually talking about this on the live event, that I was at 2 weeks ago, where I was the stage speaker. And, building wealth is easy. It's keeping the wealth is the issue, because it's all about the will, let's say, right? Where we leave it to the kids, possibly in some families, it becomes a little more dynamic. But if they don't know what to do with it, they could be in probate court. They could be challenging it with each other with legal. But instead of using legal to battle, it could be as a partnership on how we plan this all. And it just needs to be thought out and planned and talked about on how you really want it. And I just cannot be more grateful that I was able to do this with Sophie and let her have the business that she wants and all the people that are with this. And if you're out there and you're struggling around the money, or you see some of the similar struggles, or it came out today, I applaud you. We see you. We see you here together, Sophie and I, today. And we hope you come through and ask questions. Sophie's available if you want to talk to her about anything. Um, and for sure, me, that, that this should not be in your nightmares. And the tax people are your friends, they're not your enemies.
Mm. Yeah.
So, with that being said, thank you again for your time. I know this was a lot to take out, and but this was both part of our journeys that we want to help others. And I'll say this: to spend on ourselves and to spend around money, it can take a lot. Like, I remember when I first did this for myself, I said no. But then what happened is when life triggered me, and it was requiring more of me with a huge bill and tax on, for a bonus tip, I literally started to do these things and never looked back. I had the control. So when I put my head down at night, like, let's put it what it is. I'm a single woman. I'm divorced. I'm alone. However, what I will say is that even with a partner, it's not their job to control help my money and to pay all my bills. We could do it together, but independently, being able to have the choice versus a partnership, and giving yourself that choice, whether you're a man, woman, or he, she, whatever it is these days, just giving yourself these skills is so important. And look, she took the leap around money, and she just did, and she got another check today, and it just fills from there. I can go on and on. So thank you. Any questions, as always, let me know. Sophie, before we close, is there anything else you want to share to the viewers?
I think this is from Dr. John Demartini, but one of his things he says is, any area in your life that you are not empowered in, you're going to attract challenges. And the point of the challenges is to give you pushback so that you can find your empowerment to overcome it. And so that was another driver for me, as I was attracting a lot of challenges monetarily. And now I feel empowered and I'm in that next phase. And so I just thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you for letting me help you, and for the HCT team to support you, and more to come. Talk soon. Bye for now.